There is a condition affecting 29% of Americans right now, 43% of everyone under 35, and nearly all of them, 95%, say it is actively making their financial decisions worse. It has a name that only started circulating a few years ago, and every article you have read about it tells you the same thing. It is a distorted perception of your finances. Go see a financial planner. Not one of them has told you what is actually happening inside the brain when you have it. Not one of them has explained why it exists, where it came from, or why more money has never once cured it in anyone who has ever had it. That is what we are doing today, and by the end of this, you will not just understand money dysmorphia, you will understand why you are always going to have it, and why that is the most important thing anyone has ever told you about your financial life. Money dysmorphia is what happens when your felt sense of your financial situation has nothing to do with your actual financial situation. You have enough by every objective measure, you have enough, and your nervous system is running a financial emergency that the numbers cannot explain. The financial planners who write about it say, you are comparing yourself to social media, you are looking at the wrong benchmarks, you are thinking about money wrong. And all of that is true, and none of it touches the real thing, because the real thing is not in your thoughts, it is in your body. It is in the cortisol that fires when you open a bill that you can afford. The tightening that happens when you check your balance, even when the balance is fine. The specific sourceless dread that sits in your chest on the last week of the month, even when this month is actually okay. That is not a comparison problem. That is not a benchmark problem. That is not a thinking problem. That is not a thinking problem. That is architecture. Money dysmorphia is not a malfunction. It is a survival feature. And it is one of the most sophisticated psychological systems in the history of the human species. Here is what the existing coverage of money dysmorphia completely misses. The term was coined to describe a distortion, a perception problem, something to be corrected, recalibrated, treated. What it actually describes when you go below the surface and into the neuroscience is a nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do, perfectly, in a world it was never built for. Your brain contains a threat detection architecture that was designed for an environment where resources were scarce, unpredictable, and could disappear without warning. In that environment, which existed for every ancestor you have ever had until approximately the last 100 years, the brain that felt satisfied with yesterday's resources and stopped scanning for threats was the brain that starved. The brain that normalized each level of abundance and immediately felt the pull of not quite enough. That brain kept hunting, kept building, kept surviving every winter that ever came. The dissatisfaction was the engine, the anxiety was the fuel, and your bloodline is alive today because that engine never switched off. Money dysmorphia is not your brain broken, it is your brain running an ancient survival program in a modern account balance. And the program here is the part the financial planners will not tell you. The program was never designed to respond to numbers. Here is where the evolutionary design creates its 2026 problem. Research shows that the way people feel about their financial situation matters 20 times more than their actual bank balance. 20 times, not twice, not 3 times, 20. YouTube, that is not a metaphor, that is a measurement of how completely the felt sense of financial reality operates independently from the financial reality itself. Harvard economist Sendhil Mullainathan spent years studying what financial scarcity does not just to the bank account, but to the mind. His finding, scarcity occupies cognitive bandwidth. The constant low-grade vigilance of monitoring a scarce resource borrows from the mental capacity you use for every other decision in your life. He estimated this cognitive tax at the equivalent of 13 IQ points. Not because financially stressed people are less intelligent, because their intelligence is being consumed by a threat monitoring system that will not switch off. And all of that is true, and none of it touches the real thing, because the real thing is not in your thoughts, it is in your body. It is in the cortisol that fires when you open a bill that you can afford. The tightening that happens when you check your balance, even when the balance is fine. The specific sourceless dread that sits in your chest on the last week of the month, even when this month is actually okay. That is not a comparison problem. That is not a benchmark problem. That is not a thinking problem. That is not a thinking problem. That is architecture. Money dysmorphia is not a malfunction. It is a survival feature. And it is one of the most sophisticated psychological systems in the history of the human species. Here is what the existing coverage of money dysmorphia completely misses. The term was coined to describe a distortion. Every raise you have received has been absorbed. Every financial milestone has become the new floor, the new baseline, the new thing you cannot afford to lose. And the distance between you and the edge of not enough has stayed exactly constant, because the edge is not a fixed point on a financial map. It is a function of wherever you are standing. This is why money dysmorphia gets worse as your income rises, not better. The floor rises with you, and the anxiety of being at the floor does not care what number the floor is labeled. 77% of Americans say economic stress has disrupted their sleep in the past year. 67% report it creating strain with their partners and families. These are people whose accounts in many cases are fine, whose bills in many cases are paid, whose income in many cases has grown. The cortisol does not care. Studies following people who moved from genuine financial scarcity into genuine financial stability found elevated cortisol responses to financial stimuli, bills, account notifications, price tags, persisting for decades after they achieved the stability. Their accounts were stable, their bodies were still treating ordinary financial information as a potential threat. The nervous system of a person who grew up with financial instability did not form opinions about money. It built a threat detection system around money, wired into the body, expressed in cortisol, running below conscious awareness in a way that does not care what you consciously believe, what your account says, what your salary is, or how many years of financial improvement have passed. The nervous system of a person who grew up with financial instability did not form opinions about money. It built a threat detection system around money, wired into the body, expressed in cortisol, running below conscious awareness in a way that does not care what you consciously believe, what your account says, what your salary is, or how many years of financial improvement have passed. Money dysmorphia can show up as sleepless nights, tight shoulders, irritability, trouble concentrating, and feeling on edge. That physical inventory is not anxiety about money. It is the nervous system running its financial threat protocol in a body that has more money than the protocol was calibrated for. You open your banking app. The balance is the highest it has ever been in your life, and something still tightens, not dramatically, just that familiar hum, your body reading from a map that was drawn before the balance looked like this. The cortisol did not get the memo that the scarcity is over. Here is where this becomes personally uncomfortable, because this chapter is about you specifically, not you in general. Think of 3 people. All 3 have the same net worth. All 3 look identically financially successful from the outside. From the outside, a polished lifestyle can be very convincing, but appearances rarely tell you whether that spending is supported by savings, cash flow, long-term planning, or debt. The first person grew up inside financial abundance. Their nervous system never had to build a scarcity architecture. Financial security feels normal to them, not achieved, not earned, just normal. The baseline their body starts from is safety. Money dysmorphia barely touches them. The second person built wealth slowly from a stable middle-class foundation. They worked for it. The earning felt effortful but never terrifying. The rival feels solid, a little proud, mostly real. The third person clawed out of genuine financial instability. Every pound earned through years of real threat. Every financial upgrade achieved against a nervous system that was wired for a different world. And now, with the same net worth as the other 2, with the same account balance, with the same external evidence of financial arrival, they feel like they are pretending, like it could disappear, like they are one bad month from the thing their body still remembers. All 3 have money dysmorphia in theory. Only one of them feels it crushing them daily. 43% of Gen Zers and 41% of millennials report experiencing money dysmorphia. The generations who had to navigate the housing crash, the student debt crisis, the gig economy, the cost of living surge, the financial instability of their formation years. Those are the generations carrying the heaviest architecture. The ones for whom the gap between being fine and feeling fine is largest. Not because they are weaker, because they built the most sophisticated survival system of any generation alive, and the system is still running the old program in a new world. Dogged by phantom wealth, those illiquid assets they can't see in a bank account that don't seem real to them. Many still suffer from the financial stress of feeling like they're falling behind. Here is the 2026 version of the problem that did not exist for any previous generation. Before social media, money dysmorphia was calibrated against your neighborhood, your community, the people your nervous system could actually observe. The comparison pool was limited by physical proximity. Your threat assessment, your felt sense of where you stood financially, was shaped by a group of people whose lives you could actually see in full context. Now the comparison pool is global, algorithmic, and curated specifically to show you the moments of peak financial display. The holiday, the car, the restaurant, the apartment, stripped of the debt that funded them, stripped of the anxiety underneath, stripped of the 30 ordinary days that surrounded the one extraordinary moment that made the feed. Social media has made the distance smaller. We open our phone and see someone doing that and think we can obtain this kind of success. And then we measure ourselves against it. And the measurement produces the gap. And the gap activates the nervous system. And the nervous system runs the threat protocol. And we call it money dysmorphia. But the social media is not the cause. It is the accelerant. The dry wood was already there, built in childhood, built in formation, built during the years when the scarcity was real. Social media just lit the match 50 times a day. True wealth is often much quieter and far less visible. Real financial security usually looks like flexibility, discipline, and options, not constant display. Every article about money dysmorphia ends with the same advice. See a financial planner, track your spending, limit your social media, set goals based on your values. All of it is useful. None of it addresses the architecture. The architecture, the nervous system's threat detection system around money, built-in formation, running in the body below conscious awareness, does not respond to financial planning. It does not respond to spending trackers. It does not respond to social media limits. It responds to repeated lived evidence that safety is real. Which means the path through money dysmorphia is not a financial path. It is a neurological one. It is the slow, patient accumulation of evidence that your body, not your conscious mind, your body can use to update the threat assessment. Months of the account being fine when the protocol expected it not to be. Years of the rug not being pulled out despite the body's certainty that it was about to be. The nervous system does not stand down because you tell it to stand down. It stands down because the evidence finally overwhelms the historical data. This takes longer than any financial planner will tell you, and it is the most important financial work you will ever do. Because every financial decision you make, every investment, every savings choice, every career move, every negotiation is filtered through the threat assessment architecture first. Fix the architecture and you fix the decision making at the source. The accounts have been telling you you are fine for years now. The work is helping the body finally believe it. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not doing money wrong. You are running the most sophisticated financial survival program ever developed by the human nervous system, in a life it was never designed for. And that distinction between broken and built for a different world is the one that changes everything.